Hello and welcome to Policy Watch. The big story this week, sugar decontrol or partial decontrol as the government likes to call it. After more than a year of deliberation and pressure from the sugar lobby, the cabinet finally took that decision, hence providing some cheer for the sugar industry. Soma Banerjee is my guest this week. Welcome back to the Policy Watch, said Soma. A little later in the show, we'll also look at the other big story coming out of the capital this week. Rahul Gandhi speaking to India Inc. and Narendra Modi about to address women entrepreneurs of FICCI. But before we go there and get you that, let's get you the headlines this week first. Government partially decontrols sugar, does away with levy sugar. Sugar sector hails the move. Government says prices won't rise. India in courts, Rahul Gandhi and now Narendra Modi. Rahul speaks at CII national meeting while Modi will address FICCI ladies' cell. And India Inc. responds positively to Rahul Gandhi's speech, says views and speech promising, but now he needs to deliver. Those were our headlines. Straight to our top story this week. More than a year after the proposal was first mooted, the government this week took the decision to decontrol sugar prices. Experts say that this move will provide a lifeline to the sugar industry. Here's a report. Take a look. As far as policy moves are concerned, this one is sure to make life a lot sweeter for the sugar industry. The government has loosened its decades-old control over the sugar sector, offering a lifeline to the 80,000 crore industry. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, or CCEA, approved a Food Ministry proposal seeking freedom to mills from supplying subsidized sugar for state-run welfare programs known as levy sugar and scrapping the release order mechanism through which the government controls sugar sales in the open market. The step was suggested by a high-powered panel headed by C. Rangarajan and set up by the Prime Minister himself last year. As per the recent decision, states will now purchase sugar from open market via a bidding process and sell it at lower rates through ration shops. The difference between the two prices will be borne by the centre, but with a cap of 2 years. But how much will the move really benefit the industry in tangible terms? Some reports suggest that companies will now be able to save Rs 3,000 crore annually from the move, but on the other hand, the government's annual subsidy burden for sugar will increase to Rs 5,300 crores from about 2,600 crores currently. There you go. Shoma, this partial decontrol of the sugar sector, sugar prices that the government has done, many people argue still, even after the decision, that this partial decontrol goes away from the spirit of the Rangarajan Committee recommendations. Would you agree with these people? Is that true at all?
I wouldn't really think so.
Given the riders that the government has given.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this sugar, as we all know, is a very politically sensitive product. It's not bereft of the lobbies, the various political interests, and also that it's a common man's, everybody everyday use. So the government needs to go in a calibrated fashion in this, and I think they're right in doing a partial decontrol. They've also specified 2 years time frame, which means that the government wants to take stock, make those changes which are required as they go down the path. So I think for starters, I would agree that it's good that it's been done in a limited way.
So it's a calibrated manner, and you agree with the fashion the government is going about it? You mentioned a very important rider, the two-year cap. Now, there is no obligation for levy sugar for a period of 2 years, output starting September 2012. Now, in the Rangarajan report, there was no mention of a time frame. Is that what's leading people to say that, oh, it's, going away?
Yeah, I think two things. One is, of course, the time frame, which the government has specified. So, there is always this iffiness that whether this is going to continue or the government will roll it back or things like that. And the second thing is that, it really needs to see if cane prices are decontrolled. Right. Sugar is a byproduct, as a product of cane. So when you decontrol the product, but you keep the raw material under control, there is some sort of a mismatch. Right. Some states have taken some step like Karnataka, but I think that is where people are feeling that maybe you didn't go the whole hog. You needed to do some things for the cane as well as when you were looking at decontrolling
Important that you mentioned cane, because Rider 3 in this partial decontrol is that state governments get to decide on cane price as well as minimum distance criterion between mills. Now, the Rangarajan Committee said two things. Number A, removal of cane reservation and minimum distance criteria, and B, it suggested two-stage pricing instead of sap linking to revenue of mills. Giving cane pricing to states, do you think that's the right move? Because like you said, if you have the raw material under control and you decontrol partially the industry, is it going to work?
Ultimately, what has happened to the sugar by this decision. You have decontrolled sugar pricing as far as you and me are concerned.
Right.
The only part where sugar will still be sold at controlled prices in the PDS system. The PDS
Which is 32
system
kg,
is,
I think,
yeah,
is
so the PDS system is run by the states, right? It's the states which run the PDS system. So to keep cane under the state pricing is, I mean, if you have to have control, it has to be the state. I mean, there cannot be central pricing for that. The debate, the question is whether that should be carried on if you're looking at sugar decontrol. And I think that's the big dilemma which faces every industry. Like, for instance, you have a complete decontrol on, say, gas prices, but you have power at regulated prices. So, you know, the point is that there could be a mismatch between the raw material and the final product if you don't have a timeline which is given.
Right.
Which is
So you would not agree with people who are saying that this is a half-hearted measure and it's you know, because sugar is politically sensitive, it's an issue.
No, I think they've shown some guts in this. I mean, as we know that this matter of sugar decontrol has come up, I don't know how many times, but the government has really never, a government of the day has never been able to really push that last mile. So I think it needed a lot of political consensus, it needed a lot of political will to be able to decontrol sugar prices, even in a limited way.
The sugar lobby, the sugar industry, lobby is a harsh word, I think. The sugar industry, especially ISMA, which is the Indian Sugar Mills Association, they came out with a statement arguing that this 2-year time frame, this cap is not really going to affect anything. And they think, and I'm quoting their spokesperson here, he says that this 2 years time frame is just for subsidy calculation purposes. It is not going to be implemented back after 2 years. Does that look like the case?
You know, first of all, ISMA will change its role. We'll have to look at its role very differently now because it's a free market. I mean, sugar mills, and they will decide for themselves. They don't need associations to lobby, as you use the right word. When it comes to their point of view for 2 years, I'm not quite sympathetic towards it because I think 2 years is a fairly good time for the sugar mills also. Remember, sugar mills today are going to step into a direct consumer market.
Right.
You know, and I think the first thing that you will see probably, firstly, you will probably see more sugar come into the market, and therefore you will see prices come down. Of course, depending on the crop, because it's ultimately dependent on that. But as we see it, prices should come down. So the government is quite right in that. They don't have to have inventory costs because they don't have to hold the sugar, which they had to earlier. And thirdly, I think you'll see a lot of branding now coming in. See, the only instance of branding was earlier sugars like Mawana sugar and the rest. And I'm told, and I read somewhere, that Mawana is actually a BFI case today. So companies will really look at branding. Companies are going to come and sell sugar to. And I think the good news for sugar and for consumers is that you'll probably have variants of sugar now. You'll have,
not just the one double refine that we have.
Yeah.
You mentioned prices won't rise. In theory, they shouldn't rise. But there is a fear among the industry as well as experts that the sugar prices, because there is no control now, it's left to the market, even though it's partial. But there will be a price rise, and there's also another bigger fear of cartelization of
you know, that's a reality of every market, and I don't think the fear there is unfounded. It's quite logical, it's quite natural, and we've seen that. But you know, ultimately, wherever market forces have come to play, we've found the market finding their own solutions. So cartelization, and I think the chances in sugar are a little less compared to others because the players are very many here. Unlike in other industries where you have just 4 or 5 players, say in cement or in on oil or any of that, cartelization is easier. Here you have the number of players is far larger, also the kind of players. So you have cooperatives as well as private mills, as well as maybe some of them public sector. So therefore, I think chances of that could be kind of meted out, but you can't rule out.
So you're saying competition will take care of the cartelization?
That is true.
That's the hope.
That's the hope, and I'm sure in the long run, that's what's going to happen.
Right. We'll take a small break, Soma. We'll come back with the other big story of the week, and that should be interesting. Don't go anywhere. Interesting stories and views coming up. Soma Banerjee and I will be talking about Rahul Gandhi's big speech at the CII National Conclave. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Policy Watch. 2 big speeches, 2 leaders at different ends of the political spectrum, 2 possible prime ministerial candidates. One addressed the national conclave of the CII, and the other will address the ladies' entrepreneurship cell of FICCI in a couple of days from now. Now, CII is seen as the face of the more westernized corporate, while FICCI is seen as, the den of the traditional family-run Indian businesses. Likewise, Rahul Gandhi is seen as more of a westernized and cosmopolitan leader compared to Modi's more homespun, desi, charming ways. Our focus on Policy Watch is not Rahul Gandhi or Narendra Modi or the BJP or the Congress. We are interested in what either side has to offer in terms of solutions to India's industry. Are these leaders just pandering and playing to the gallery, or do they have a concrete plan as well? Shobha, what did you take away from this? Let's talk about this big speech first, the Rahul Gandhi's speech to CII. Let's take them one by one first. Let's take Rahul first. In the shadows, operating out of the shadows for years, the common refrain, the common complaint against him was that why don't you come out and tell us what you really have in mind? Now, finally comes out at a big India Inc. meet. Comes out Obama-style town hall meeting, must do, will do, can do attitude. What did you think of the speech, first of all?
Well, my personal take on that is that it was a fresh departure. It was low on specifics. It was disjointed. It was not very professional. It looked unprepared. I mean, particularly the first part of the speech when he was at the podium, his body language wasn't confident enough. He was not there. But given the kind of speeches we hear across, which is very high on rhetorics, I kind of felt it was a welcome break. This was not a speech which gave solutions. This was not a speech which told us anything new. But I think it was a speech which was giving the vision of a person. And if I am going by visions, then visions are usually dreams, intent and dreams.
Intently, they're vague.
Yeah, and they are vague. I mean, they are things which you can't quite, they're not tangible, so you can't really touch and feel, but they give you an idea or a peep into the person's thinking. And I think that is what I took away from the speech which Rahul Gandhi made. It really didn't give me anything which he would do as a leader or which he or his government meant to do, but it gave me some sense of what his thinking is all about.
Narendra Modi will speak on the 8th, I think, on this coming Monday. Do you think this particular speech by Rahul Gandhi at the CII conclave was a deliberate attempt to neutralize the sort of image that Modi has created? The authenticity of that image is highly debatable, and we're not going to go into that debate right now. It's highly contentious as well to some people. But do you think the posturing has started to counter what is perceived by many, and a great many inside India Inc., that Modi will get things done?
Yeah, I mean, there's no two ways about that. Modi is not going to be talking of dreams. I mean, his dream is a concrete dream. His dream is not about something which is still nebulous, which looks very far-fetched, which looks, which you can't see. His dreams are based on real models, and he is going to speak of that model. So I think, an interesting thing is also that you're talking to businessmen. You're not really talking at a college campus.
Now, you're not talking to,
Yeah, I think that made a difference.
Voter per se,
So if Rahul Gandhi was making this speech at a college campus or even outside, I think people would buy it more. But the moment you talk to industry or the India Inc., or guys who are actually, and he mentioned guys and boss and all that, people who have actually put in money and are looking for real-time solutions, Modi is a definite edge. He has an edge because he's done things. Now, whether Rahul Gandhi really tried to do this intentionally, I'm not sure. The verdict is still out. I don't know. Again, there are spin doctors, there are speech writers, there are speech managers. So really, what their intention was is not clear. But yes, you can make out that he definitely positioned himself as a person whom you could not. What I think he's been able to do is that you can't really compare them on the same plane anymore. Exactly. Yeah. So if that was intentional, I think very smart. You've been able to show it that we're not comparable. Don't even try it. Because if he were to compare himself with Modi, then I think he's on the losing streak. He really doesn't have. Modi can give you 5 definite examples which Rahul Gandhi cannot do. So I think if you're right, and it could be a well thought out strategy, just departure from it. Just don't leave any scope for comparison.
One interesting thing that I noted in the speech, and I didn't see the whole speech, I saw bits and pieces of it, and he made a slight dig, I think, at Mr. Modi when he said, a chief minister of, say, Assam cannot come on a white horse and save us. Now, isn't that sort of thinking does resonate with some people, in the sense that there can't be any one knight in shining armor and come and take all the troubles of the country away, be it economical or be it economic or political. That bit do you agree on? That no one person can just waltz in and take care of all your
I think most people will agree with that. Nobody, in fact, people have questioned, so what's new about that? I mean, nobody expects one person to come. And he was very, I mean, while you're right that the dig, or if you can call it, or the hint, what as at Mr. Modi, in fact, I heard one of the senior editors mentioning that is Fiki going to have a white horse in its on its stage because the night is going to come on Monday. Well, but very interestingly, and I heard the whole speech, he said, so if you expect Manmohan ji to come and solve all your problems, you can go on expecting. Very interestingly, you talked of the night, you talked of the white horse, but you mentioned Manmohan because he's the man who's actually on the horse now. Right, and he said he's not going to be able to do it. So again, very clever out there. I think, you know who you're hinting at, but you're using a different name to kind of send the message.
Do either leaders, Rahul Gandhi or Narendra Modi, in your opinion, you've tracked them both, you've tracked both parties as well, you've seen their politics as well. Given the fact 2014 is just, months away now, do you think they have a roadmap for the problems facing the economy, or is it more, at this stage, even when Narendra Modi is concerned, more rhetoric than roadmap, more brouhaha than blueprint?
No, if I'm to compare both of them on that, then Modi wins hands down. Modi definitely has been an administrator, he's dirtied his hands, he knows where he stands, and in many respects, very different from what his party professes or says. He's a man who goes beyond the party line, or rather even departs from the party line when it comes to his state. Okay, so when it comes to a roadmap of any sort, I think Modi has it much more than Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi, remember, even in this speech made it clear he doesn't want to be a part of the government. He doesn't want to become the prime minister, and he even said, I'm here because of quirk of fate.
And on the other hand, you have his competition who is eager to get
who
there.
has made it clear that, he's paid his debt to the state, he wants to come to the center. He's a man who wants to assume charge, and here is a man who doesn't want to assume charge in governance, because to me, Rahul Gandhi wants to go down as one who tried to bring about empowerment of the people, and not by sitting in an AC or a ministerial or a prime ministerial job. Now, how much that's going to be possible, whether the party is going to allow that, is anybody's guess. But if I could take away from him and his speech and people who are around him, then he is definitely not a person who wants to be there. And he admitted it. He said, I'm not there. I probably get there.
This Monday, on the 8th, when Modi speaks, do you think there's going to be the sort of media attention on that particular speech as well? Because this created airwaves everywhere. Every channel
media
was
is going to lap up Modi just the way Rahul Gandhi was lapped up. I think even more. Because if you remember, Rahul Gandhi actually was lammed pretty badly on social media. And the reason behind that is that BJP is streets ahead when it comes to Congress on social media. They really, and Modi, I mean, he is streets, moons ahead in front of his party.
Own party,
So, when it comes to Modi, in fact, the joke is, if you want to get followers on Twitterati, just lamb Modi. No, just lamb Modi. Because you'll have the world following you and telling you all sorts of things. So the idea is that Modi will be celebrated just as much, in fact more. There will be much more substance in what he says. I won't be surprised if he makes gentle hints and digs at Rahul also. He may not again take his name, he may also, but he'll definitely make digs at, I mean, it's obvious.
It's going to be a newsman's dream to actually compare the two.
It is. And I'm telling you, this is a period which I think media houses are,
they're going to have a ball.
Yeah, they're having
One last question on this, Soma. Industry, given the fact that they've been players for a very long time, and for them it's all about making money, it doesn't really look like they're going to throw their weight completely behind one person at this stage. Because there were voices coming out of the CII conclave as well, Adi Godrej and the rest as well. And even critics of Rahul Gandhi, like Rahul Bajaj, for example, saying that, it was a great speech, it was very positive, but now let's look at what he can actually deliver. So they didn't completely write him off, did they? So you think India Inc. as a whole is going to, even their approach is going to be calibrated, and they're going to wait and watch and see how it really unfolds, how the cards unfold, and then throw their weight behind a particular
India Inc. at best will always be calibrated. Remember, they have to be with the government, and no matter who is the government, they have to be with that. That's how India is. That's how business runs here. But I got a very interesting take from a friend of mine who's actually an NRI, who has a company in the US. And when I asked him what his takeaway was, and it was an outside view because he's not in India Inc., he gave a line which I thought was very interesting. He said, to me, for the first time, and a clear departure for the Congress stand was, Rahul Gandhi spoke of partnering business in delivering for the poor.
Right.
And he said, Congress is always seen as left of the center, a socialist party who's always looking at business as a bad word. And you guys don't do enough, and you don't do enough for the poor guys. And this is how the rhetoric has built, unlike the BJP, which is seen as a more right of the center and a right of the center party. He said, for me, it was a clear departure. And for me, the takeaway is that Congress has perhaps come to realize that they need business on their side even to do their social work, even to meet their social needs. And I think that's an interesting take because because Rahul Gandhi emphasized how you guys have to be partners in policy making, you guys have to give empowerment, you guys have to give jobs. So the question of you guys, I think, meant that we are together in this.
Right, and take everyone forward together.
Exactly. So some people, I mean, this was a very different kind of a viewpoint. And I think there may be some merit in that.
Right. On that note, Soma, we'll take a break. We'll come back after the break. We'll give you key takeaways on the other side of this break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. That was my conversation with Soma Banerjee. Many thanks, Soma, for joining us on Policy Watch this week. Our first story, our top story on Policy Watch this week was sugar decontrol, or partial decontrols as the government likes to call it. They've done away with levy sugar for a period of 2 years, output starting September 2012. It's a good calibrated move, say experts. The sugar industry is happy. Cane growers are partially happy. They're still being cautiously hopeful about it. The government says the prices won't go up at all, but there are fears of cartelization. There are fears of the prices going up. But if everything goes right, in theory, the prices shouldn't really rise then. At least in the short run, they shouldn't rise. Our second story, and a very important story on Policy Watch this week, was India Inc. quoting Rahul Gandhi on one side and Narendra Modi on the other. It started. 2014 has started. Public posturing has begun. Rahul Gandhi came out, gave that big speech at the CII National Conclave, which was slightly not so heavy on substance, but yes, it was a fresh departure from how politicians really address India Inc. and what kind of vision they really have. We'll have to wait for Modi's performance, if I could call it that, at the Ficky Ladies cell. And my guest seems to think that he has the potential to do slightly better because he's been doing this for a far longer time than his so-called opponent has been. Lots to come this coming week. Good fodder for us newsmen. You take care till we come back next week with Policy Watch. That's all the time we have. Athar saying goodbye, good night, and thanks for watching.